Dirty Little Secrets, Chapter 10, 4:45 p.m. I ordered my drinks and headed to the bathroom at the back of the cafe. I'd managed to beat Kaylee here. I knew Josh's work schedule by heart, and luckily he was off on Tuesdays, so I didn't have to see face to face what I was giving up. I had a feeling that if I looked into those brown eyes, I'd be able to rationalize just about anything. The bathroom was empty, so I turned on the hot water full blast in the sink and poked at the stream with my finger until it got warm. Once I had the temperature adjusted so that it was just this side of too hot, I ran it over my hands and lower arms, feeling a shiver raise the hairs on the back of my neck as the warmth reached through my skin and into my blood. I stood staring into the running water, enjoying the sensation of hot water cleaning away the maggots and the dirt and the thoughts of everything that had gone on today. Out of everything else, I missed hot water the most. I had a bathtub in my bathroom, and a couple of times in the last few years, I'd warmed up enough hot water in the microwave to take a teeny tiny bath. But it took so long to get bowls of water hot enough that in the end, it really wasn't worth the effort for 5 inches of lukewarm water. Showers at the gym were nice, and they never cared that I often stayed in there so long that the clouds of steam rolled off my red skin by the time I got out. Maybe we could get a hot tub for the backyard when everything was cleaned out. I'd always wanted a hot tub. A lady with a bad orange dye job opened the bathroom door and went into the stall. So I just soaped up my hands, rinsed one last time in hot water heaven, and turned off the tap. My hands were red, but warm all the way through as I patted them dry with a paper towel and went back into the busy cafe. The frothing sound of the milk steamer was soothing, and it calmed the flutters of panic that kept rising in my throat and threatened to reject the blueberry scone I was picking at. My stomach was starving, but my head wasn't interested. I chewed another piece of scone and looked around. It was somewhere between lunch and dinner time, and there was a surprising number of people sitting down for their afternoon jolt. Nobody paid attention to me. I just blended in with the rest of the people in the cafe, staring into space and waiting for their drinks. It was amazing that a person could have such a big secret, and it didn't show at all. 2 large vanilla lattes, the girl called, setting my cups on the counter. Just as I reached for them, Josh walked out from the back room, tying a black apron around his waist. "I'm back if you want to go on break," he said to the cashier. I was frozen between trying to pick up the steaming coffee without being noticed and running away. Damn, Kaylee. She must have noticed he'd be working today, which is why she wanted to meet here. I grabbed the coffee and tried to turn around quickly, but it didn't work. "Lucy," he said, sounding surprised and, I hoped, happy to see me. "Fueling up before the big party tonight?" "I was on a break, or I'd have gotten you something special." Josh grinned, showing off every one of his perfect white teeth with a small but adorable gap in the middle. He wasn't making this easy, standing there looking like something out of a magazine. "It's okay. Thanks, though," I said. I pretended to be absorbed in slurping up the plume of foam that had appeared through the tiny hole in the lid. "Yeah, I'm meeting Kaylee. Here she comes." He nodded toward the front doors. Kaylee walked in with the phone to her ear, talking loudly to someone, but she snapped it shut as soon as she saw us. "Good," she said. "You're here. I guess you've told him already?" Josh tilted his head and looked at me. "Told me what?" I willed more people to show up and desperately need caffeine, but it looked like everyone in town was taken care of for the moment. I took a sip of the hot latte. Maybe later. You're busy." I made a move toward an empty table, but Kaylee grabbed my arm and held me there. "Lucy has decided that she can't come tonight after all," Kaylee said to Josh. "Something has come up." She made little quotation marks in the air with her fingers. It was hard to read Josh's reaction. Even though I knew that there was no way I could show up at the party, I wanted him to look at least a little disappointed. "You sure? We've been working on this new song and I really wanted to hear it. Really wanted you to hear it, I had to admit." He looked pretty sincere. "Yeah, I said, "I'm sorry, I really can't." Looking into his eyes was like looking directly at the sun. Do it too long and you could go blind. I stared down at the scuffs on my Converse. "Next time, maybe?" "Sure," he said. He reached across the counter, but just then the bells on the front door rang and 3 women walked in. Josh looked like he wanted to say something else, but instead he turned toward the customers. Good afternoon. What can I get for you? As he ignored me and became all businesslike, I started to realize what had just happened. Josh had asked me out once, and chances were he wasn't going to do it again. Kaylee ordered a coffee and headed for an open table. Come, sit. I really do have to. Kaylee kicked the chair under the table so it scooted in my direction. Sit. You at least owe me that for bailing. So I sat. Kaylee had been my best friend since the start of this school year, longer than I'd ever been best friends with anyone before. She didn't ask a lot of questions and always believed my answers, which to me were important qualities for a best friend. I couldn't afford to blow it, especially now. After what happened to my last best friend, I swore I'd never let it happen again. I'd always been careful before. Whenever I got picked up at the house, I'd made sure to meet people out front or on the curb. I spent a lot of time waiting outside, but it was worth not having to explain why they couldn't come in. I should have been waiting at the end of the driveway for Elena and her mom to pick me up that day. Even though I'd never been able to pull off the slumber party, she and a couple of girls in my class still seemed interested in hanging out with me. I'd fooled myself into thinking that they liked me. Instead of waiting at the curb that day, I was in the bathroom trying to get one side of my hair to lie flat like it was supposed to. Once I noticed what time it was too late. Elena was knocking on the front door before I could even get down the hall. I stood on the other side of the box with my heart racing. I stood on the other side of the door with my heart racing, trying to figure out what I was going to do. Hey, Elena, I yelled through the door. I'll be out in a minute. I'll meet you down at the car. Okay, she yelled back. I took a deep breath. Close calls always freaked me out. I stood on my side of the door for 2 whole minutes just to make sure, but when I opened it, Elena was standing on the other side. Even worse, she slid into the doorway before I could pull it shut. You know what, she said, I really need to. Her words tapered off as she looked around at through the parts of the house that she could see. I really need to pee. She looked directly at me with a funny smirk on her face. Can I use your bathroom? It's broken, I said, knowing in the pit of my stomach that it was already too late. Our hallway bathroom was covered in mildew and the shower was filled with papers and bags of clothes. But technically, it still worked. She'd have to push her way through the rest of the house to get there, though, and there was no way I was going to make this worse. Broken? Asked, staring at the piles of newspapers that lined the hallway. How does a bathroom get broken? We're remodeling. I tried to block her way into the house, but just then, Mom came around the corner and stopped in her tracks at the sight of Elena on the wrong side of the door. Her hands flew to her hair as if having a few hairs out of place was the worst thing we had going. Oh, hello, dear, she said. Her voice was shaking and her eyes were darting around the room. Are you girls going out? I was just telling Elena that she can't use the bathroom because of the remodel. I sent Mom messages with my eyes to please, please go along with me. She hated lying, but she hated having people in the house even more. Mom couldn't keep her hands still, and they flew around her body like they were possessed. She reached out to touch some of the newspapers and to smooth the cover of a National Geographic that had gotten bent, but until she opened her mouth, I wasn't sure what she would do. Right, the remodel. I was afraid Elena would see my relief. For once, Mom was on my side. She looked directly at Elena for the first time. Perhaps we can go next door and ask Mrs. Raj if you can use hers. Elena took one last look around, memorizing the piles of junk that reached almost to the ceiling. That's okay, she said. I guess I can wait. I grabbed my bag and all three of us slipped out of the house. I didn't dare look at Elena, but Mom cut her eyes at me like never been so angry in her life. I knew she'd blame me for letting Elena in on purpose, even though I spent all my time trying to keep people away. I was glad I was going out because then maybe she'd cool off by the time I got home. Mom followed us down the driveway and plastered on a normal-looking smile as she waved to Elena's mom in the driver's seat. Hi, Victoria, she said as she reached the van. Thanks so much for taking Lucy with you. Oh, it's no trouble at all, Elena's mom said. I pulled back the door and strapped myself into the van. I tried to stare straight ahead and listen to their conversation, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Elena had seen. I started to breathe faster and had to will myself to calm down. Maybe it wouldn't be as bad as I thought. Maybe Elena would just think the place was a little messy is all. After what seemed like an hour and a half, Mom stepped back from the van with a wave. All set? Elena's mom asked. Yup, Elena said as the van pulled away from the curb. She watched out the front window as her mother drove, but kept sneaking glances back at me as she talked. I swear I saw her nose wrinkle just a little bit. That whole afternoon, Elena seemed normal but distant. There was no way I was going to bring it up, so we just acted like nothing had happened and had hoped that was the end of it. I found out at school on Monday that it was nowhere near the end of it. The balled up piece of notebook paper hit me in the back of the head to the sound of giggling from the back of the room. It landed near my right foot, so I bent down to pick it up. As quietly as I could, I straightened it out in my lap so that I could see the cartoon of what was probably supposed to be me, with boogers dripping down my face and flies buzzing around me. I was sitting on top of a mountain of junk. Underneath the whole thing were the words "Garbage Girl" written in big black marker. I looked toward the back of the room, but everyone was staring at their desks, pretending to write in their journals. It could have been anyone, really, aside from Elena. I didn't have any real friends. Maybe now I didn't have any friends at all. "Lucy, do you have something to share?" The voice from the front of the room echoed in the stillness. "No, sister," I said, and tucked the disgusting drawing away in my notebook. To my left, Curtis Swanson coughed loudly, but I swear I could hear the words "garbage girl" come out of his mouth. Over the next couple of weeks, I was going to hear it a lot. Elena avoided me like I stunk, and I got notes and drawings stuffed in my locker almost every day. I finally told Phil about it after I'd said I had a stomach ache and stayed home from school for 3 days straight. For once, he wasn't a jerk. He was the sympathetic brother I'd always wanted sticking up for me. Now that he was older, Mom treated him more like another adult. Maybe she knew he was on his way out. I don't know how he did it, but Phil got Mom to let me go to public school right after that. She said it was because Catholic school was too expensive, but communication wasn't a strong point in our family. I was just glad the whole Garbage Girl episode hadn't followed me this far. Yet. I glanced back at the front counter where Josh was helping some more customers. He wasn't even looking in my direction. I'd missed my chance, and he'd already moved on, probably relieved that I'd changed my mind. Kaylee picked up her coffee and walked back to the table, squinting at the display on her phone, trying to read a text. "So it looks like I'm meeting Vanessa at 9. Are you sure you can't come?" I nodded quickly and took another sip of coffee. "I'm sorry I got all mad at you on the phone. Is it your mom's head again?" she asked. She looked sympathetic, but that was probably because she had Vanessa as a backup. Maybe Kaylee was moving on too. "Yeah," I managed, grateful that she'd remembered my lie. "Over the past couple of years, I told people that Mom had a brain tumor, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, Alzheimer's, kidney failure, and irritable bowel syndrome as reasons for why I couldn't do something or have them over. I always felt a little guilty saying it, like I was jinxing Mom somehow. Maybe I was. I thought the brain surgery was supposed to cure the seizures," she said. "It will," I said, "but the doctor said it might take up to a year. She's not doing so good right now." "That sucks," she said. She glanced up at the counter where I didn't dare look again. "I just think Josh would be so good for you. You know? You need to have a little more fun in your life. You're always so serious." I couldn't answer her. I just looked down and studied my fingernails. "I mean, I know you don't let guys rule your life and everything," she said, "and you don't care what people think about you, but still." All I could do was look at her and nod at this totally distorted image of me that she seemed to have. I'd love to let guys rule my life. It was if my life was normal. The fact that she thought my hiding from the world with some display of maturity was actually a little sad. "Are you okay?" Kaylee asked. She leaned her face in closer to mine. "You look funny." I plastered a smile on my face. "Yeah, I'm fine. Maybe later I could come and help you so that you could get out of there," she said. "You never let me come over to help, even though you're all alone with her." As she said that, the backs of my eyes started stinging like I was going to start bawling. The worst part was there was nobody who could help me. Nobody that I could even tell. Dad had made it clear that sending money every month was about as much involvement as he wanted with us, and all he'd do was would do was tell me to call 911, or worse, call them for me. He'd probably be relieved if I could persuade Phil to come move back in with me afterwards so he wouldn't have to deal with it. But I wasn't convinced that Phil would see things my way. What if I told him what had happened and he called the police? Sarah would definitely not see things my way and would have the house surrounded by flashing lights in no time. I had effectively been an orphan for the past 8 hours or so, and I had to keep the biggest secret of all my life to myself. "No thanks," I said. I rubbed my eyes with the palms of my hands. Kaylee looked at me like she wanted to say more. Why do you even bother?" I finally asked. "Bother with what?" Kaylee looked genuinely confused. I was sure that my nose was bright red by now and that I looked even more pathetic than usual. Luckily, nobody around seemed to be listening. "With me," I said quietly, wiping my nose to make sure there was nothing dripping. "You've got Vanessa and all your other friends. I just wreck your plans." She sat back in her chair. "Are you serious?" I didn't say anything else. I knew that I sounded like a whiny pain in the neck, but it might be easier if I just got rid of everyone, all 2 of them, in one quick afternoon. Maybe after all this was over, I could make new friends, have a boyfriend even, but things were getting too complicated right now. First of all, you don't wreck everything. Okay, yeah, you bail on me sometimes, but you've got a lot going on. Do you remember art class last year? She asked. Of course I did. Kaylee sat at the next table while my partner was the annoying Miles Harris, pitcher for the baseball team and all-around idiot who threatened to ruin my favorite class. I tried to ignore him and all the girls in the class who would always find excuses to come to our table by drawing pictures of the house I was going to design someday. Kaylee started talking to me toward the end of the year, first asking me to borrow a pen or some paper and later asking me to tag along with her when she went out on the weekends. You were the only person who wasn't dying to sit next to Miles. You even seemed irritated by him. You just sit there drawing these really amazing pictures, and your projects were always so much better than mine, and your projects were always so important. And it was like you had more important things to deal with than the hottie sitting next to you. I wanted to find out what your secret was, she laughed. If Kaylee ever did find out the real secret, she wouldn't think it was so funny. I don't have a secret, I lied. Yes, you do, she said. I momentarily fluttered, fluttered with dread, but I knew she wasn't anywhere near the truth. Your secret is that you don't really care about all the stuff that goes on in school. You're somehow removed from it all. She sat forward again, which is why this whole Josh thing is so awesome. I just don't want you to walk away from him. I'm not, I said. It's just that tonight, I don't think I can come tonight. I didn't want to tell her how much I really did care about what Josh thought and what he was doing and who he was doing it with. Leaving yourself vulnerable was the quickest way to have anything good taken away from you. If I'd learned anything from Mom, it was that. Well, I'll totally keep an eye on him for you, she said. I'm not going to let him get away in spite of you. I managed a smile. Thanks, Kay, I said. I tossed back the last of the coffee in my cup. I really do have to head back, I said and stood up. Kaylee sighed. If you say so. Do you want me to walk with you? No, it's cool. I have to stop at Safeway. She leaned over the table and gave me a hug. I'll call you if anything good happens. I nodded and picked up the second cup of coffee I'd ordered. Didn't you just have coffee? She asked. Yeah, I said this one's for Mom. I promised her I'd bring some back with me. I knew I was going to need the extra cup of coffee if I was going to keep working until late at night. Don't let my mom hear you say that, she said. She already thinks you're the perfect daughter. She's always joking that she'd like to adopt you and have you come live with us. I could never tell Kaylee how perfect that would be. As much as I wanted to grow up and be on my own, I wished for someone to take care of me so I wouldn't have to worry all the time. I thought of my mother's sheet-covered body lying at the hallway at that very second. Every time I started to feel guilty, I had to remind myself that I was doing it for us all. But that still didn't change the fact that Mom was dead and I was sitting here talking and drinking coffee. I wonder what Kaylee's mom would think about that. Don't worry, I said. I'm not so perfect. Josh was busy up front, so I just walked out the door without another word. It was probably best this way. It felt like a solid lead ball was sitting in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't stand thinking about him at the party tonight. As much as I liked to think I was special, there would be so many girls there, he wouldn't even notice I was missing. He'd probably going out with someone else by the time vacation was over. Walking home, I carried a bag from the grocery store and balanced the coffee in one hand, hoping that and some egg rolls from the deli would keep me at least until tomorrow. I'd really wanted fried rice, but as I bent down to look at it in the deli, all I could think of was the maggot I'd brushed out of my shirt earlier. As much as it used to be my favorite food, thanks to one lone pre-adolescent fly, fried rice was probably lost to me forever. I had also loaded up on more rubber gloves and those paper face masks that supposedly protect you from chemicals and irritants. We should probably have been living in these all along. The walk was short, but it felt good to be out in the cold. I zipped my jacket up to my chin, so only the top of my head and my face were freezing. It was starting to get dark, and most of the houses still had their Christmas lights on outside, which made the cold darkness seem not so bad. Like it had a purpose, even. As I walked up our street, I looked in the windows of the houses I passed. I could see people sitting down to dinner or the blue glow on the walls from the TV. The Callens, a few houses down, had their curtains open, and I could see the Christmas tree all lit up by the window. I was sure Mrs. Callen would be in the kitchen cooking, waiting for Mr. Callen to come home. Hanging out in their house had made me realize that not everyone who had parents who loved their stuff more than they loved their kids. The air smelled like a campfire, and I thought about how it would be nice to sit by a warm fire on such a cold night. Maybe we could get the fireplace working again once everything was done. Bill and I could keep a big stack of wood on the porch and feed it to the fire every time it started to die. Maybe we could have regular movie nights in the winter where we'd invite people over, make popcorn, and sit in front of the fire watching movies with all the lights off. At this point, I should have probably stopped with the maybes and what ifs. But whenever the now got bad, thinking about the future always made me feel better.